What's up, troops? It's me, TheTacticalBrit, and today you're seeing a quick overview of the new map Rupture, which is coming in the They Shall Not Pass DLC. And today I just wanted to literally go over my impressions of the map that I've presently played on for a couple of hours now, as well as just some general analysis of the map as a whole and what you can look forward to. So first and foremost, I'm going to head on over to a quick overview of all of the objectives. I'm going to do this in the free cam just because it looks a lot more classy than the tabletop mode. Now we have the alpha objective down here, which is the Cote 60 Trenches. I probably pronounced that entirely wrong. But that's a small trench system with a couple of fortifications and bunkers. And on this side as well, we also have Chazelle's Farm, which is a small collective of buildings. In the very central ground of the map here, we've got the Isvessel Bridge, which is a pretty heavy contested objective, which, by the way, can entirely be destroyed, which a lot of people haven't quite figured out yet. That plane will probably make short work of it in a little while, but this entire bridge can indeed collapse. Then, just over here, we have the Notre Dame Ridge, which is another collective of trenches, except this time it's a much more terrained effect in comparison to the fort opposite it. And then over here, we've got the Le Cormiec's Farm. And this is the Conquest layout, and there of course will be lots of other different layouts, but Conquest will of course give you the best overview of the entirety of the map. And this is a very small map, by the way. This is one of the smallest I'd probably say I've seen so far in Battlefield 1. One of the smallest definitely in the DLC. And yeah, I just wanted to get into a quick discussion about what exactly my first impressions are of it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, after jumping into this map, the one thing I can 100% agree on is that it looks beautiful. The level of detail in this map is stunning, it looks fantastic in every weather condition, and I'm really impressed with some of the visuals that the developers have pulled off in this map. It's what we've come to expect, and the aesthetic and the design of everything looks fantastic. The overall layout and design of the map as well, I also personally agree with. You can see at the moment even, in fact, there's a fantastic example, that this map is filled with choke points. You have entireties of teams clashing at objectives. At the moment they're at Charlie and clashing very heavily, and you can even see Mr. Pro Westy down here, who's also partaking in this wonderful server. But yeah, like, players just seem to flood from objective to objective very fluidly, and in my opinion, that's when Battlefield works at its best, because that's when intense fights happen, nobody's running around particularly too bored of anything, and, you know, it's just a very hands-on, action-based experience. And I feel as though the layout of the map does indicate that there will be lots of intense firefights between objectives, lots of player movement between objectives, and I think that's going to be a very impressive feat of the map overall, and I think it's something a lot of people are going to enjoy, regardless of what game mode they're playing on. The overall layout just sort of entices you to head in certain directions, and I think that's a very huge positive of the current layout. Now, there are some glaring issues with this map, and it might not be too obvious until you're actually boots on the ground, but I'll try and give you a good example of what I mean. So just over here on this C objective, the level of cover is ridiculously low. Now, as an infantry player in this map, you are 99% of the time going to be a victim of some form of aircraft or a tank or an artillery shell or some form of explosive. Cover is very low, and you can see it throughout pretty much the entire map. The crossover between Objective C and Objective E offers a minimal cover, some slight terrain dips, but nothing that you could presently describe as cover which will actually defend you against anything. And this is an issue that pretty much surrounds the entire map, and things at the moment are presently just far too open. Now, what I'd like to see more of is things like down here. There's a couple of destroyed tanks, there's some serious level dips in terrain, and things are much more fluid around the D objective. And the reason for that is because there is adequate cover for infantry to maneuver within. But that just isn't the case elsewhere, and I feel as though a lot of the time infantry are going to be heavily frustrated. I know I was when I first played the map for the first few times, of just constantly becoming a victim to machine gun fire, to things like this giant bomber that makes runs on pretty much everybody, and mostly tank shells as well. In fact, you might even be able to see that this thing is about to victimize a lot of people. and there was pretty much next to no cover between that objective run from C to A, so my point was relatively well proven there. Now, the objectives themselves have slightly less issues with this. The objectives themselves tend to have quite a lot of cover on them. Here we've got lots of buildings, there's some forts, there's also some more buildings, and there's lots of terrain dips. And Bravo itself isn't necessarily meant to have a lot of cover, but that's kind of the point of Bravo. It's the choke point. And that's fine, but flooding between objectives is just a huge issue at the moment, and currently the aerial superiority of vehicles and tank superiority, in my opinion, is a massive issue. The amount of vehicles in this map, combined with the fact that there is pretty much no cover, is a huge issue, and the cover that is available isn't necessarily the best at defending you against vehicles or defending you against bombing runs. Things just seem to be working far too easily in favor of vehicles at the moment, and that's not really something I want to see. The problem with this is that the map is too small to accommodate the number of vehicles it currently has and just the general superiority they had. So the real solution to this is either to cut down the excessive level of vehicles in this map, or perhaps make it so that there are some limiting factors in terms of cover that are going to make it more difficult for them, or some terrain issues that are going to stop them from moving as freely as they want. At the moment, a tank can still get into D objective, even though it has some of the most messed up terrain of all of the objectives, but it could still quite easily roll through there and get lots of kills. And this is something I hope is addressed relatively soon. Other than that, at the moment, I feel as though the map is looking somewhat successful. The objectives themselves tend to offer really good battles. People are enjoying the game at the moment, and there's lots of flooding and firefights. That's the kind of intensity you come to expect from Battlefield 1. It's really impressive to see. But the only real setback is things like this giant dude rolling along in his behemoth and absolutely clobbering all of the infantry, which literally have no cover against this giant thing. And that's a major issue too. On the topic of the behemoth as well in this map, the behemoth 2 is also just ridiculously too powerful. Tank shells, explosions, tend to do between 1 and 2 damage. So this tank here, for example, can fire on this behemoth all he wants. He's probably going to take about 4 health before he gets absolutely dominated by 1 tank shell to disable him, and a secondary will absolutely execute him. It's a very counterproductive system currently in my view, and the SHA 2C is looking far too powerful on a map which is just way too small to accommodate its existence, as well as the fact of planes and other potential vehicles that are also fighting against the infantry. So really, my overall impressions of Rupture at the moment is that it's a good map. It looks great, it plays great, but presently there are some glaring issues which I feel as though is going to undermine the whole map as it currently stands. Of course, it can be changed, terrain can be added, terrain can be manipulated to provide more cover, and hopefully this is something DICE looks into. So guys, that's about it for my impressions today of the new Rupture map. I will be bringing you more and more impressions of more and more of the DLC maps as they come through. Thankfully, I've had a rather busy week which has subsided, which will now let me make lots of CTE relevant content. Let me know what you guys want to see. Do you want to see more of the vehicles, more of the maps, more of the present weapons available in the CTE? Give me a shout in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. But it's been me, the Tactical Brit, and as always, cheers and thank you for watching.